Hey, it has been a minute since we've done a live. It feels like years, but here we are. We're back. What's up, Zeke?
Hello.
Is that music?
Yeah, I thought we'd start with some jams.
Welcome to June. Welcome to Pride Month. Welcome to this Mental Health Awareness Month. Maybe that was last month, but we're like rolling. Okay. All right, cool. I kind of like this. It makes me think like I'm in like a beach disco in Spain. I don't know. That's what it feels like to me. But
Yeah, I've never been to a beach disco in Spain, but
neither have I. I've never been to Spain, but that's where it took me.
ha.
So what's shaking? How's it going?
It's going. We're into summer. We're into feels like it's busy season, but excited to be on here talking about important things, and we're gonna
Like
have some cool. We're gonna
disco.
have some cool guests. Yeah, discos in Spain. But yeah, we're gonna have some cool guests on.
I'm excited to talk with both of the Aimees.
And you've been on Surviving the Survivor with them podcast with them multiple times, right?
Yep, I have. And when was the last? I'm trying to think. Yeah, Aimee Zmroczek and I went to law school together.
Okay.
And Amy Lawrence Lovely and I, we've had like some cases in common. So, South Carolina is a pretty small legal community, so you kind of like have feelers. You were texting very furiously. That was an intense texting situation there.
Who, me?
Well, you're the only one that's on right now. So.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I'm actually sending out I'm posting on our social medias.
Oh, are you?
To engage with people.
Oh, you're the producer. You do all the things.
Doing producer things, Sarah.
Hey, all good. All good.
Yeah.
So we are going to talk with the Aimees. They're going to be on shortly. And then, cause we've got some Murdaugh stuff to talk about, which, I'm so over it.
Yeah.
Aren't you over it? Is everyone over it? Why? I mean,
yeah, it just feels like we just got over it. Like it felt like South Carolina had just calmed down a little bit, and now we're back.
So the Murdaugh stuff, when did that trial start? January, February?
It had, we talked about that the other day, and it feels like just yesterday, but it also feels like 3 years ago.
Yes, it feels like 84 years in the Titanic.
Yeah.
But
it feels like we've been watching the Titanic movie on repeat.
And there are like a lot of like Cal was the bad guy, right? Like the fiance that was like the bad guy. I feel like there are a lot of Cals in the Murdaugh Titanic story. Like there are a lot of bad people that are just milling about the beautiful dining rooms of the Titanic and really making things just
gross. Yeah. I had hey, Indy, yes, it will be available to watch on replay. Yes, it will be on replay. You can watch it on Facebook. You can watch it on our YouTube channel. Indy, come back and watch this conversation. Hopefully it will be everything you hoped it would be.
Yeah, we hope you definitely will come back. And we're going to put it on the podcast feed, I think. We should do that.
Yeah, we for sure should.
I mean, you just kind of throw these times out like, is this going to work? Who the heck knows? It's the middle of summer. It's tough.
People are probably sitting at the dinner table right now.
I know we're doing this earlier than we used to do these, but also I feel like I've aged 84 years since the Murdaugh trial. So
yes,
it's like bedtime, 8 o'clock.
Yeah, and Anna Kate, my wife and I have to watch the last episode of Ted Lasso tonight.
Oh my gosh, Zeke. Okay,
Um,
I won't spoil it, but Lord have mercy. Thank you, Indy. Yes, God bless. And yes, I hope we'll talk to you later. Ted Lasso was incredibly moving. Oh my gosh.
well, I just feel like they. So I'm a big West Wing fan. Like I up until this point, I have felt like the West Wing was some of the best writing as far as TV shows go. And
yet
here comes Ted Lasso, which is hilariously funny, but it deals with such important things, mental health being at the top of the list. And, I think I've mentioned to you before, Sarah, like I too have in my life have dealt with crippling anxiety. And so like watching Ted Lasso deal with the things that it's so powerful. And like the resistance to talking to someone about it, and just the evolution of his character. Honestly, the evolution of all
of them. I mean, Jamie Tart. We're not going to spoil anything for those of you that have not watched it, but I promise, like, it is a top-notch, incredible, high caliber show. Just a really amazing show, and it ended yesterday. And I will tell you, I cried my eyes out, like mascara running down my face, like crying my eyes out because I'm gonna miss it so much. So I'm not saying you're gonna be mascara tears, but you might be.
And a less well-known show written by the same people.
Shrinking.
Are
you watching that? Oh my gosh. So
we've already finished it. I mean, we watched it like we truly invested ourselves in that. So good. So y'all, we're waiting for the two Aimees to hop on the call with us. So that's kind of why we're I guess you could say stalling.
Bantering.
We're
just talking about the important things going on in our life. It's been 84 years since the Murdaugh trial, and yesterday.
Yeah. So Sarah, I sent, bringing it back to Murdaugh. I sent you a text. Earlier this week, I was scrolling through my Facebook feed, and those targeted ads that pop up. It's summertime, so
familiar on there.
Yeah, Verbo, or formerly known as VRBO. I think Verbo is the stupidest name.
What? Is that what it's called? Verbo?
Yes, they're calling themselves Verbo right now. Anyway, a Verbo ad popped up, and it was for houses at Edisto Island, which is a very popular destination for a lot of South Carolinians to vacation. And the first house, I was like, this house looks really familiar. Where have I seen this house before? So I clicked on it, and I was reading the description, and at the very bottom it said, this was the house that was owned by Maggie and Alex Murdaugh. And I thought,
the description of the Verbo or whatever, VRBO.
Yeah, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So there's so many like Twitter fights that happen about, people who are profiting off of this story, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like that was a prime example of someone profiting off of the story. And how many people are going to rent this house because they want to say they stayed?
Not me. Not interested in
that. Not me. Yeah.
I don't want that.
No.
I don't want to know. I don't want to be there. Number one, not a huge fan of Edisto. No disrespect to anyone who loves Edisto Beach. But I'm not interested in seeing that place, being amongst that energy. That's not cool for me.
No.
But
And, I think it was such a big part of the story because, Alec had talked Maggie into coming back to Moselle from Edisto.
yeah,
That, I think
supposedly
that
that's
it's
why she was there that night. Yeah.
right. It's almost besides the Moselle property, like one of the most probably well-known Murdaugh places.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I know some people that own houses at Edisto, and they were just down there this past weekend for Memorial Day, and some of them have houses close, and they talked about the traffic through that area is still so yeah,
That's
it's weird.
one of the things that I feel like I said at the very beginning of the Murdaugh trial that was something that I never wanted to delve into is that, the trials that we watch, and I mean, I enjoy watching trials. I mean, obviously I wouldn't do what I do if I didn't want to do that. But, you know, watching trials, keeping up with this stuff, it's not meant to be entertainment. It's not entertainment. These are real people's lives. These are real lives that were lost. These are real people who've been charged with crime. I mean, this is the most serious of the serious. So I'm always just so concerned and hesitant when talking about some of this stuff because it's not entertainment. It's, you want it to be educational, you want to learn something, but you also just don't want to delve into that rabbit hole where it becomes just like a hobby, and
Right.
that's always something that's just concerned. That's something that makes me a little bit weary of covering other trials and things like that because it's just something that I never ever want victims or, survivors or anyone to feel like people are just enjoying their suffering. And that's,
For sure.
and I think you kind of alluded to it earlier that there were some, like, I feel like we see Twitter fights all the time. Like there's a lot of Twitter
Yeah.
fights. I don't spend a whole lot of time on Twitter since the trial has been over, but there's just so much out there that people we look to and we have just differing views on, and that's good. That's okay. But I think the one thing that I don't think I'll ever abide is us using trials and people's victimization as entertainment. That's never going to be cool with me, which is why I never watched any of like the documentary. I've never watched any of that stuff. Maybe it's because of my job. I see enough of it. I don't want to. That's not entertaining to me. Give me Ted Lasso. Give me football.
That's right. Yeah. I just recently got curious about the documentary on Netflix, and so I watched it. I did watch the full thing, but I had to watch it in spurts. I couldn't watch it all at the same time.
It's intense.
It was so intense. And, I think that that's probably the way Netflix intended it to be. I think that that's the way that the producers wanted it to be. But I just found myself like the people that were on the documentary, primarily those involved in the boat crash, they still had such raw emotions. And I thought, this can't be healthy for them to have to sit and replay all of this in such a real way. That's something that struck me as I was watching the documentary. I felt so bad for them. And I know they made the decision to do that and tell their story. And I think their story is important, but it struck me, just how raw their emotions still were.
you always want to give victims choice, like as much choice as possible. Are you able to do this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to be involved in this project? So I think it's always good to ask and see if people want to do that. But I think you make a really good point, one that I was talking about earlier today. I had some victims that were speaking with media today about a case. And, we see so often, there's like the initial victimization, which is the incident, right? But then
Right.
there's subsequent victimizations, whether it's with family and friends, social media, the media getting involved, and they're kind of being, some twists and turns along the way with the criminal justice system itself, you're reporting to law enforcement. Hey, Ellis does not want to go to bed, does she?
Ellis, I don't think is wanting to
Or eat.
maybe she's hungry. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. But talking with law enforcement, having to tell your story, then meeting with the prosecutor, having to prepare to testify, you're reliving it over and over again. And there's so much that you don't realize that initial victimization is over with. But these subsequent times, it's another form of victimization. And it's obviously it's not the same, but I don't know how we improve upon that in our system to protect victims from some of that. I really don't, because it's so necessary, because we've got to have, victims need to be prepared to testify if a case is going to go to trial and all of that. But, part of the trauma-informed approach is not making victims have to tell their story over and over and over again. It used to be that, you'd have an officer that would come out to the scene and, the victim would tell their initial, story. This is what happened. And then someone else would come up and they'd be like, so tell me what happened. And then the investigator or detective would come in and they'd be like, tell me what happened. The victim advocate would come in, they go to the hospital. What happened? I mean, they're telling their story so many times, and it's like, whoa, that is not what's best for the victim. So kind of,
yeah,
the way
I think that's
forever.
Right. And I think that's why it's so important to have lawyers like you that kind of can stand in as a buffer for those type situations to protect the victim from experiencing those re-traumas, those re-victimization moments where people have great intentions.
Yep.
People are trying to help. People are trying to move a case along or whatever the situation might be. But it's something that the victim of any crime or any situation, it's unfortunate that they have to deal with that in order to get justice for the crime that was committed against them or against a loved one or whatever the case may be.
It's one of those things too that, I've had victims that have come to me and said, I've been through counseling. I feel like I've healed and, I'm prepared to talk to the media. And it's always one of those things that I'm just very cautious. I want to ask them to think about what they're doing if they really want to do this with caution. Not that I'm discouraging them from doing that, but is this something that, so often we think that healing is like this linear thing. It's like start, finish, and I'm good. And after you come to the end of your quote healing or grief or whatever you call it, it's like, okay, well, I'm good to go forever. And I think the thing that people learn with trauma and with grief and just healing in general is that it's really like hills, that we're seeing. And it's so often something completely unrelated, or what you think would be completely unrelated, is what brings you back to that point where you're reliving that trauma. And so, I think it's really difficult for us to think about victims and survivors, when we say, okay, well, I've healed from this trauma. I always like to say I'm healing from my trauma. Like every day you're healing from your trauma, you're moving forward, you're taking a step to move forward. So it's a process. It's definitely a process. So, hey, Aimee.
Sorry, I had a federal proffer that ran a little late.
That's okay. We've just been talking about, what did we start talking about? Like Ted Lasso. We talked
Ted
about
Lasso,
that.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you watched that, but huge fans of that. And then we just started talking about, the Murdaugh trial feels like it was 84 years ago and it was yesterday, right?
Yeah, it does not feel 84 years ago to me.
Well, you're still dealing with a lot of it, aren't you?
I am.
So what's the latest, Aimee?
Well, it's crazy. I got real worried because the way that I think that it's going to go for Eddie is no prison time, things like that. But then when these Fed indictments came down, I was like, shit, is he going to get swept up in that? But knock on wood, I don't think they're interested in the type of behavior that he was required to do, because of Alex. So hopefully it'll just, run its course. But just yesterday, was it yesterday? I don't know. My days are running together now. Just either yesterday or the day before. No, it must have been yesterday. I don't know. But anyway, I got this big discovery dump from the AG's office. And I was like, what in the holy world is this?
Oh gosh.
But so I called him and I was like, look, I'm doing 18 things right now. Is this something I need to stop and look at? And she's like, no. But so they're gearing up for their state trials as well. And so they were just, because they shared it with some defendants, they had to share it with me. I was like, all right, I'm not looking at it right now because it's a lot of numbers. And I'm like, I can't.
Right? Oh, God.
It's just, I don't know. I still feel like there's this weird dichotomy between the feds and the state. And I don't know.
It's always been a bit of like a pee contest is what I've always feel like. And it's like, who's first, who's last, where are you going? Who's gonna, for defendants. And your practice is exclusively criminal defense, right, Aimee?
I mean, I would say 98% of it. I mean, I do some, which I think, even though it's civil in nature, I still think it's criminal defense. I do PCRs and appeals. Yep. But like my personal injury stuff, I usually farm out. So I'm still a part of, but
right.
I get the people there and that's it.
Yeah. So, when I'm a former prosecutor and, it was always the cases that I never wanted the feds to take that they, I always was like, please, I want them to take this case. They would never take those cases, but always the ones I'm like, yes, what a kick-ass case I've got here. They're like, oh, like our hands from God coming down, right?
I just don't, like, for Corey, I get it. I mean, because obviously there's this also weird, like if you plead to one first, then like you have to, you can't just move your time and things like that. So I think the big concern for everyone is that they think Alec is going to get moved to Fed, but he's not going. And I can't explain that to people enough, but
Well, I think people think like, well, you go to prison, like you get, you go from like state prison to federal prison and back again and all that. And I'm like, nah, like he's going to be in state custody. I mean, that's the thing about the feds is like, they want to come in at the end of that, especially if they're going to be in.
Right. And I guess, so, to that end, it's like, what's the point?
Great question. One that I did not write it down, but I was like, I hope we talk about that. And Aimee Lawrence Lovely, thanks for joining us. You're muted, babe.
You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
I'm so sorry. I've become a mother, like you'd think I've never used like a Zoom or a StreamYard. It's like everything that could go wrong in the interwebs. I'm so sorry, y'all.
You're good. You're good. It happens. It happens. But yeah, I was hoping we were going to talk about that tonight because like, what does that really look like? I think most people think it's just like, hodgepodge.
I mean,
whatever.
For Corey, it looks like heaven. He'll do 2, maybe 3 years and really just, I don't get it. And you know, I've never been one to master politics because I usually just say what I'm thinking, which apparently, you know, you're not supposed to do. But
apparently we're not. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but I just don't understand.
We're failing at life then.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand.
Literal microphone.
I think we were all this is what we were all hoping, right? When we heard that Corey was this cooperating witness, that we were going to like see everybody else, the other pieces of the puzzle come into play. Right. And I don't think that's what's going to happen.
No.
Because I don't think anybody really wants to ask those questions. I don't think anybody's asking those questions. In fact, Dare, if you hear me, ask the questions.
Where's the money?
Yeah, and it's like, you know, the only way to really to bring integrity back to the system, which is what we're all hoping for, is shining a spotlight and asking all the questions that we're all thinking in our head, or people are posting on these Facebook groups, you know, like the Murdaugh murder group and all these different groups, and they're all asking the same questions we are. And when we're not asking the same questions, then the question becomes why? It's because they don't want us to know the answer. They don't want to know the answer.
Right.
Because they've got an inkling of what it might be, because it's going to drag all these different big players in. And that's the fear. And I've said from the very beginning, I don't think Dick Harpootlian wanted to be involved in this shit show. Sorry. From like day one, he's there to keep everybody from not going off the rails and dragging everybody down with him. That's what I truly think his purpose in this whole thing is.
Well, I'm so glad that y'all joined us because we're recording this for the podcast. And these are the important questions because I love that. I feel like every time I get together with y'all, whether it's just, we're just chatting, sometimes on the phone, I talk with you, sometimes Aimee Lawrence, lovely. Or we're like on STS or one of those. It's like, I always feel like you all are looking at the state of affairs in South Carolina legal community in a very similar way. And right now it's that it ain't that great. It's just not. And we got work to do. And I feel like we keep having folks that try to like pacify us and say, it's all good. Don't worry about the man behind the curtain. We're doing so much, but all of that. And it pisses me off every time because it's like, if we were
that we do not acknowledge, we cannot change, right?
1,000%.
Even the people that are supposed to be the ones shining the sunlight and fixing the problems and blah, blah, blah. And it's like,
we watched a trial.
Why are we still swimming in this tiny little
trial
pond?
Was about financial crimes.
Right.
We had an accountant with a gun get up and testify. He was very fancy. At least he thought he was. And we found out about all the money that he stole, but nobody asked where it went.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. And that's very purposeful.
I mean, I think sometimes where it becomes like, if we ask that question, how far are these tentacles going to go? And are they going to wrap some of us up? And I don't mean, but just in general, like collectively wrap us up in it. And we will never clear the air if we don't.
If you stole people's money, if you knew that people were stealing people's, like I talked, like this is, I feel like it goes back to what I told my kids, right? Last week, something happened at school and my kid stood up for another kid. A kid said a word that you don't say. And he looked at him and he said, we don't talk like that.
Go ahead.
And I said, because I've taught my children from the time they were little that if you stand by and you know something wrong is going down and you don't try to stop it, then you're just as guilty. Or if you sit around and laugh about it and stuff, you're a part of the problem. You're not a part of the solution. And somewhere along the way, from 5 to 55, 65, we've missed the mark because like, who cares? Who cares if this drags judges into it? I don't give a two shits if it takes on judges, because if they're doing shady stuff off the record, signing off on things, you know, and this is it. If they're doing that stuff, then guess what? Hold them accountable. I find it funny that the entire Republican Party, it goes back to this. I see them. They're all like on their soapbox. You got to take personal responsibility, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And then when it comes time to hold people accountable, everybody's running for the hills. Oh, don't look at it. Don't ask the questions.
Yeah.
It's like, are we insane?
Right.
Accountability is not a dirty
Come
word.
on.
The one question that Amy and I ask each other constantly is, how the football do you have a CFO? That's your job. You are the CFFO, and
She was a CPA. She's a
$10
CPA.
million fucking dollars goes missing, but you're gonna sit up there because you discovered what?
You're still the CFO. You're
like a
still
couple
the
$100.
CFO.
Yeah, I don't still to this minute, and I don't know how it happened, but somehow I got on the Parker Law Group mailing list. I get like holiday cards like in the mail. I'm like, what the?
So fancy, Amy.
I know. Like the first one I got, I was like, all right, is there like a bug in this thing? Like what? But
They heard us talking shit. What they did. They're trying
Anthrax and the whole.
I just don't understand. Like, I don't understand how
Well,
I open like South Carolina Lawyer magazine, and the whole firm has pictures and like don't mind us, and I'm like, but I have so many questions,
Well, I find it funny that millions of dollars are stolen over a decade, right? Millions and millions and millions of dollars, but they only find it when it's their millions of dollars that gets stolen.
Yeah.
Is that a coincidence, do we think? Come on.
And also, I'll also take great issue. Anybody who does personal injury knows you don't write checks to Forge ever. It defeats the whole tax shelter purpose of it.
Right.
Money, like if I were to get a case, like let's say I have a case, I settle it for $100,000. Let's use it a random number, like a good whole equal number, $100,000. And let's say it's a child, right? Kid who's 9 years old. We put it into a structured settlement because we want it to grow. That way the parents don't go and spend it or do something stupid. And then we all agree with the parents in the court that they'll get a payout at 19 for college, right? 20, 21 and 22. And then a payout at, let's say 25 for their first house. I do this quite a lot. I always talk them into this and it always works out great. You handle college, it gives them and then it gives them money to put down for their first house. I think it's a great process. Yeah. Okay. So I get this, I work it all out. I get the $100 settlement. It never comes to me. That money never comes to me, never goes into my trust account ever. It goes straight to Forge from the insurance company, never comes to the lovely law firm. And then Forge cuts me the check, my part, my attorney's fees and cost. So you never write a check to Forge. Yeah. Because if I write a check to Forge, that means it's coming to my trust. And it has, it opens it up
to Sunday.
Because it can grow tax-free in this structured settlement. But if not, then it doesn't grow tax-free. And so the whole shelter part of it is broken and it opens up Pandora's box. So to act like that they thought that was a normal thing to write a check to Forge blows my mind.
I know that. And I've never been a personal injury lawyer, never done anything like that. And it's like, the money comes from them. It doesn't go to, like, come on, guys.
Did y'all see, I don't know who sent me the screenshot of it, but the Forge guy, the director or whatever, just had a birthday, and
Gunn.
Yeah, Michael Gunn, and and Randy.
The first person wishing happy birthday.
First person was Randy. I was just like, just the optics. Like, you pay PR companies, I don't know how much money to try to fix whatever shit covered jacket you're wearing, and and it just
makes it's not rocket science to say maybe I shouldn't be the first one on a Facebook page to wish this guy.
Maybe just text him.
Maybe I just send him a text. Exactly.
Just text him. Maybe I don't. And I wonder if that's. I don't know if women are just innately better at this. No disrespect to men or you, Zeke, but
no, total disrespect. We do everything better.
I will say, He says, I will sit quietly in the corner.
He's like, yeah, y'all just keep talking. I just feel like women are able to look at things a little bit more broadly and see, if I do this, it's probably not going to be good for this in an easier way. Maybe that's why so many women do like PR and like the whole I don't know, but
which is so crazy because we're so emotional.
Aren't you? I mean, it's just, I'm crying all the time at work. My God.
On the floor.
But it does. I think it's those little things that just make people think, what the heck? Like, why would you do that? Why would you just open yourself up to further speculation and just
that
derision or whatever?
Went through every lawyer like text thread that I have, group text.
Well, and like just as you said, like, what the heck? I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You find out in like May or even before that there's hundreds of thousands of dollars that are not accounted for, but you just let it roll and let it roll and let it roll. But then you become the star witness because you're like, oh, not on my watch. And I'm like, but it was on your watch a lot.
But wasn't that like the one thing in law school and like even like beyond like Bridge the Gap or whatever, which I feel like Dick Harpootlian taught Bridge the Gap, or am I dreaming? Which is like the little like 3-day like lawyer like CLE boot camp before you become a real lawyer, I guess. But anyway, it's like that's the one thing that we always got so like drilled into us to be scared of. It's like, if $1 is missing, like if it is not where it's supposed to be, like you are going down, you are going to prison, like, your law license is gone, And then I just feel like I keep seeing more and more of this where I'm like, how does this just happen? I don't know.
But then you'll see the solo practitioner or the, that's what, even still, like you look at the advance sheets and it's like,
license.
Yeah.
They tell you have a better chance of killing somebody and keeping your law license and taking one nickel. You know what I mean? Heck, I mean, I've seen sexual assault victims of attorneys, and they still keep their license, and they've sexually assaulted people. But you take one nickel and it's done. You're done. It's crazy.
Yeah.
They scared them. One time we had a lady, after a lien was done, there was 14 cents. I wrote her a check. She would never cash it. It gave Justin and I the most anxiety for months. And finally we called our ethics attorney, is Barbara Seymour. Shout out. She's amazing. And she's like giggling because she knows how serious we take it. I mean, I have 3 CPAs that help me 3-way reconcile everything every month because I want to make sure it's perfect because they've drilled that in our heads. And then you see that mess.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's like, get permission from her to donate it to somebody. You know what I mean? And I'm like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah.
Is that okay?
Get her to respond it, put it in the file, and you're good. But I literally had it, like, was taking Tums because of the heartburn it gave me over 14 cents. Well, unless your last name's Barker or Murdaugh, and then you're good.
It only applies to some, it feels like, right?
Right.
So Aimee Zmroczek was telling us as you were joining Amy Lawrence Lovely, the Amy's, thank you for joining us tonight. We were talking about cousin Eddie and, being wrapped up in any sort of federal stuff. And Amy's feeling positive, feeling good about that.
Also knocking on every piece of wood I could find.
Hey, I'm with you. Hey, we do what we got to do, right? But Amy Lawrence, what are your thoughts on the latest indictments that have come out? Like, were these shocking to you? Is it overkill? Is it annoying you as much as it's annoying me? Tell me.
It goes back to, like, we all thought, okay, this is the moment where all these questions are going to be answered. Like, we're going to find out who was really involved. And then we didn't. And everybody was laughing because somebody on Twitter, some attorney was like, Corey Fleming is a cooperating witness. Everyone's butt puckers in Hampton County. Like, you know what I mean? Or whatever. It's like, everybody's like, I'm like, no, I didn't. He's not going to do anything. They think that everyone's hate for Alex Murdaugh trumps and will like blind them to not even worry about anything else anymore. Right. Yeah. Because we want to punish him so bad and put him under the jail because he's killed his wife and his child. And I don't think that's how the public feels. I mean, I'm a member of these Facebook groups because they bring me pure joy. The drama that is in these groups.
Here, Aimee Lawrence is in these groups. Yeah.
I rarely ever comment ever. Every once in a while,
You're the lurker.
Like, that's not the law. The law says this, and I'll just give a statute. But they are not, I mean, they're still questioning everything, daily, hourly, minutely. And I just don't think this is going to do it. And so the question becomes, why are we so unwilling to shine a spotlight on wrongdoing and unlawful behavior? Why is it okay if you're fancy to do the wrong thing? I mean, we see what happens when that goes unchecked. I mean, I would say that I would say that Maggie and Paul understand the price that is paid when we leave that unchecked for so long. So, like, when is it going to be when is the moment that we're going to go, oh snap, we should do something about it? We should shine a spotlight and bring charges against all these people involved in something. Like,
against everyone.
I mean, we know that someone has stolen like $15 million from people. And the thing is, it's like, it's not like Bernie Madoff, right? Bernie Madoff stole money from rich people. He was a rich dude who stole money from rich people. Right. He was like the opposite of who's the guy? My brain's not working today. Who's the guy who stole from the rich and gave to the poor?
Robin Hood?
He's the opposite of Robin Hood, right?
And I was like, question mark, Robin Hood?
All right, yes, it is Robin Hood. Sorry, my brain's fried today. And my kids have been at like half days. It's like, and I'm 100 places. I'm losing it.
It's summertime. It's like, oh.
You're the best. You come right in with Robin Hood because I should know that off the top of my head. And it's like, he's the exact opposite. So like, I mean, we all feel bad for people that lost things, but like, okay, that's a horrible thing. And he paid a price for it and all that stuff. But like here, Alex Murdaugh, like when I think like, y'all, I don't even take fees on cases like this. Like, I give them all the money. Like, we have a case where a 4-year-old little girl was paralyzed, and there's a couple $100,000 in insurance. Do you know what we did? I didn't take a fee because that little, like, it makes me cry just thinking about it, because that little girl's going to need and that family to like hold them together and to be able to like give her the services and medical providers that she's going to need for the rest of her life. I don't even take fees on stuff like that. And here, this mother effer, I'm abbreviating, he stole from paraplegics.
I mean, people had to move out of their mobile homes because they did not have the funds to pay.
They were poor little people. And I mean that with like the most utmost respect in the whole wide world. But like, he stole from like the least among us, the most vulnerable people. And I'm like, what in the world is like, why are we protecting all these people who helped him steal from paraplegics? What is wrong with South Carolina where we're still not asking the questions to help this never happen again? Because Alex Murdaugh and Corey Fleming are just two very small pieces of this puzzle. Very small.
And I know I'm gonna, if whoever was watching this, it's gonna come back on me. But what is a certain Murdaugh sitting judge gonna do to me at this point? But your own flesh and blood, who was a lawyer, who was, is, rest in peace, is gone now, but steals the penny tax from Richland County, steals from the Richland County poorest people, but gets reinstated, gets his law license back, sadly passes away. But you can't tolerate that behavior. I'm like, but it's happening in your own house. And that's, I think, a poor, it's an example of everything that we
have, right? It's the house of the bar. It's
right. Everyone has a responsibility. Right. We're a self-reporting bar. Like, if I see something, like, we have a responsibility to report that. But it makes me question, nobody who's doing that. None of these people are doing that, obviously, because it's just protecting the criminality, like everything.
Well, that's why I'm saying the Parker Law Group now, they're not one person called ODC. Yeah.
So I keep seeing stuff on.
It's crazy.
I keep seeing stuff on Twitter where sometimes I wonder how my Twitter. I feel like there's like the for you and then the people I'm following, because then I'm like, how am I following all these people? And then I'm like, I'm not. This is just what Twitter thinks I want to see. But a lot of people are talking about like, where was ODC throughout all of this stuff? Like, and where are they now and what's happening with that? I mean,
they're still busy going
knock on
after
wood.
solo practitioners to get their names, you know, to get their names on the Wednesday list or whatever. And that's what I don't understand. You know, I mean, that devastates people, you know.
So what is the commonality? Is it just money? Is it just power? Is it the powerful, you know, the 10 powerful firms in the state? Like what
do you think it is? That's exactly what it is. I mean, it's the Venn diagram.
Oh, she's using dual.
The Venn diagram, and power's in the middle.
Yeah.
Listen, they will disbar my ass in a heartbeat, probably for this podcast.
I mean, exactly. I feel the same way, though. I feel the same way.
It's just like, if this is not going to be the one thing we're going to hold people accountable for, then fuck it. What are we doing? Just get rid of the whole thing.
Right. Just burn it all down then. Like, let's just
sometimes, you know what? I learned a long time ago, especially when I take on like big agencies, police departments, whatever, school systems. Sometimes you got to burn it down so you can build it back right.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's what I don't understand. Like, we know, thanks to a certain podcast that just harps on this judge, right? And I don't go in front of that judge and whatever. I don't know her from Adam's house cat, but there's evidence out there that not only in the Murdaugh case, but just in life, that there's an abuse of power. But it's just like nothing to see here, you know. And they're not even addressing it, and I think that's the problem.
Has on blinders.
Mm-hmm.
They're like horses, and they're just hitting the trail that somebody gave them, and one foot in front of the other. And if it's not directly in front of them, and even if it is directly in front of them, they're not doing anything about it because they have a one-track mind, and they're obsessed with Alec, and he's horrible, right? And he's disbarred, biggest piece of shit ever. I don't hate anybody, but like, dead to me. You know,
totally DTM. Agreed. Yeah.
Yes. Whatever. If he died, not one tear will be shared. Not making a lasagna for anybody's family. You know what I mean? But he's just such a tiny part of it. Mm-hmm. And until we like really just pull back the curtain and shine a light on all of it, mm-hmm. then, you know, what do we do? We're just pissing in the wind.
Totally agree with that. And, you know, I was talking with somebody today about, you know, there are all these pieces. Like I, you know, working with victims, we see so many, you know, failures in the like systemic failures. And it's like, well, you would hope that, you know, law enforcement would catch us, or the prosecutors would catch us, or the courts would catch it, like all of these things. And then you have victims that come after the fact and they're like, can you help me? And I'm like, this has been burned down for you. Like, there's absolutely nothing that I can do to help you at this point. But, you know, looking at these systemic things, the people that are actually willing to say, hello, like this is really crap, but we can do better. There are things called accountability. There are things called reestablishing trust in our legal system and all of that. Those are the people that are never going to kiss the right behinds to actually be in a position to do something about it. And that is what's so frustrating. Just watching this, just in general, just watching what's unfolded over the past couple of years, because it's really a depressing state of affairs. It really, really is. And it's like, so how do we fix this? I mean, obviously I have a microphone now and, you know, 3 people that watch me, but that's fine. I mean, they're going to listen and hear it, but, or if they, you know, they can change the channel if they want to, but there's just so much going on. There's just like the self-protection, self-interest that keeps happening. And it's really frustrating because the people who suffer are the most vulnerable. Those are the victims, the people, the quadriplegic, the people that we're seeing that are being stolen from and abused by the system, and, you know, by really shitty attorneys and such, are just it's just the saddest situations, you know, and
they're the victims of all victims.
It's just awful. It really is. It just,
well, they get re-victimized, right? And the one system that's supposed to bring some kind of justice for them has been one that robbed him of it, the heart, you know, and re-victimized him the worst. And it makes me so mad because I love being a lawyer. I love it.
It's the best. I love it. Me too.
My husband always says he's a lawyer, and he always laughs. He's like, "You get up so excited about being a lawyer." I'm like, "Most days I really do." And he's like, "I wish I really loved the practice of law like you love it." I love going in. I love court. I love being able to help the little guy. I love helping people like change their life. I love helping.
Is there anything more valuable in helping someone solve a problem that they can't solve on their own? So they come to you as a lawyer to like, this is the most like to me, it's the most honorable thing to be able to sit there and help them. My gosh.
What's your Enneagram number, Sarah? What is your Enneagram number? Are you a 2 or are you an 8?
Oh my God. So I'm an 8 with was it a wing 2?
Yes, me too. Okay, yeah, that's us. Okay, that's me too. Justice and a helper, right?
Yeah, makes sense. Yep.
I knew it when you were talking. Like, she's an 8 with a 2. She's an 8 with a 2. Yeah, it's like the best feeling to be able to help people. I mean, that's why I became. This is like people always ask me, like, I'll take on weird cases pro bono all the time, and they're like, "Why? Like, why would you take that?" And the cases that no other attorney wants are the ones that I want, because those are the people who need you the most. And I looked at this one attorney from ODC because they were investigating why I would take a case. They thought there was some weird ulterior motive, I guess. I figured out later. And it was an innocence project that Aimee and I worked on for 5 years, spent all this money. It's like crazy. And we exonerated them. And this attorney, he looks at me, this investigator, he's like, "Why would you take this case?" And I was like, these are the cases you go to law school for. That when you hear this, you can't, you know, like people always make jokes that if you like witness a car wreck, you like act like you didn't see it. Like you can't, like that drives me insane. Like, but when you see this kind of injustice, you stare it down and you take it on, right?
You
like,
go towards it instead of walking away. Yeah.
Right. Like if they need CPR, I'm not that great at it, but I'm running towards them. I'll give you mouth to mouth if you need it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I feel about things in life. Like especially when it's like a huge injustice like that, the cases that no one else wants are usually the ones that I gravitate to the most. And Aimee's the same exact way.
I am.
Those are our jam.
Well, it's so refreshing because, you know, I mean, I've been a prosecutor, a public defender, and now I'm a nonprofit lawyer. So, you know, people are always like, when are you going to go be a real lawyer? And I'm like, dude, I am a real, like, you know, but I'm like, whatever.
I mean, this is the real law. Yeah.
This is it. This is the good stuff.
Mhm.
But I think there are so many, you know, misconceptions. Like, I think we talked about this before, like all the lawyer jokes and all of that. Like, there's so like this small Venn diagram, like small, like number of people that cause like all of these things that give the rest of us lawyers a really bad reputation. And really, like, we have to fight so much harder to just be like level playing field. And I think that's what I think people think, if we don't talk about it, it'll make it better. Like we'll get back to that level playing field faster. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think that people are like, people are smart about it to know.
Trouble in the first place. Yeah.
Have you ever seen the Chris Rock stand up where he talks about bad apples, cops, right? It's just a bad apple. This cop killed somebody, right? And he goes, yeah, but like, would we say that about pilots? Yeah, he was just a bad apple. Took down a whole plane of 236 people. Like, you know what I mean? There are certain professions that we don't have the luxury of being a bad apple. That's police officers, that's lawyers, that's doctors. That's the people who have to help people in their most vulnerable moments, right? Pilots also.
Please be good at your job. I'm going to get out plane in like 2 days, Aimee. Jesus. Okay.
We don't have the luxury of being a bad apple. You know what I mean? So, and that's what makes me so mad. I'm like, when you really, really love what you do, when people like abuse the systems, like the Alex Murdaughs of the world, they just send you, like, my chest is just red. Look, can you see? Like, just thinking about it, like, makes me so mad because I love what I do. And I find it so honorable to be able to help people in the way that we do. It just makes me so angry.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make sense. And I want to shift a little bit to the whole Jeriod Price thing. Because that's been like another like hot topic among like the lawyers. And
before I start talking, this is for educational purposes only and allegedly. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Maybe see Zeke. That's what I need to like. Yeah, like
Allegedly, for educational purposes only. This is what I think may have happened. Okay, go ahead.
So, go ahead, Aimee. Go ahead, Aimee Z.
Okay, so I'm gonna say it like this because I would never name names because that would be terrible. But there are some older, when I say older, like just been practicing a long time, prominent lawyers that I like and I love, and we're on the same side generally, but it's like what's right in front of me, you know. Joe McCullough, I love that man, right? But
great hair too. Great,
and he knows this because I say this to his face all the time. And no, he is incredibly intelligent. But when the 5-point shooting happened, a case that I tried and got overturned, but you know, he was all like on the other side, and I'm like, Joe, I never know like when I wake up like where you're gonna be. And I feel like we're in that same kind of situation where, you know, I'm sure y'all have heard about what happened in Richland with the 14-year-old who was allegedly shoplifting and blah blah blah. And so we have again another lawyer that I love and respect, right, saying, how do we let this happen to victims and people and da-da-da. But just a month earlier, you were the one defending that same behavior, you know. And I guess like that's when I say I don't play politics or whatever. Like with me, you get what you see, you know where I stand on things, and that doesn't change just because a good headline or a good story or
whoever's paying me.
Right. Like I'm the same, like no matter what. And I guess I'm just disappointed. I wish more people were like that because I never know. I mean, what happened to this 14-year-old was horrific and terrible. You know, if what I'm hearing, you know, that's out, but you know, but at the same time, you know, I got a notification today that the guy that broke in my freaking car and like took my whole life, you know, was getting out of prison. And I was like, oh, when's he getting out? Oh, he got out like
3 months ago.
No, like 10 days ago. And I was like, what's the point of signing up for this Vine system? You know, and I mean, I really only do it for 2 reasons. One, you know, he kept coming back here. That's because I had to like detain him and get him arrested. But you know, but I also, because I feel like, you know, victims, especially in my line of work, can really drive either a plea or a trial or a whatever, a whole hearing. And so when when I get the opportunity to be a victim, and, you know, I mean, you ask anybody, I hate an auto breaker. Like I hate defending them. I tell my clients when I'm like, dude, the worst fucking crime, like don't go into people's cars and take their shit. Like, why would you do? Like, I get it's a quick fix for your high or whatever. Like it is. I hate that crime, right? But I don't, you know. But then on the victim side of it, you know, where I'm trying to like, you know, look at it and it just, none of it makes sense. And so to bring it back to the Jeriod Price thing, like you know, I mean, I completely and wholeheartedly agree with Todd that if, you know, 14-year-old was shot in the back because he was black, you know, it's inexcusable. You know, along with whatever, you know, and again, it's the whole shrouded in secrecy. The fact that it's still shrouded in secrecy, whatever Byron entered into. I mean, because that's where it started. Everyone wants to blame Manning. It didn't start with Manning. It started with the solicitor, you know, but
let me just tell you this. The ultimate accountability is with Judge Manning. Yeah. And we all don't, nobody wants to come out and say it, but that's really, because guess what? When you know better, you do better, and he knew better and he didn't do better. Right. And he knew that was not going to fly, and he did it anyway.
On his last day.
And that's the point of a judge, though, is like, you know, you've got, you know, I'm going over here, you're going over here. The judge is like, I'm going to keep this. We're going to like throw the ball
He's
down
going to
the
make sense
middle.
of it and do the right thing under the
Right.
law. And somewhere along the way, we've seen the deviation, whether it's in the Murdaugh case or in the Price case or whatever, is that everybody's kind of living by their. Well, I think everybody's living by their own code of rules. Nobody's rolling by the rules of law and the rules of ethics of South Carolina's bar. And I guess the part that's disheartening for me is that we, and I guess I feel like this all the way to the very top with the Supreme Court of the United States, because I've lost faith in it too, with all the stuff that's come out with Clarence Thomas. And, when John Roberts, who I've always really, really admired, there was this opportunity to do the right thing and he won't even look at it. He's over there trying not to see the car wreck. Is we're not seeing the accountability because they still haven't released all the documents and really got to the bottom of what really happened. All we know is we're going to undo it.
Right.
And when we see it, the South Carolina judiciary, when's the last time we ever held a judge like to account? I'm not sure of one. Anybody know of one that's ever been reprimanded?
I think that the way that they've been, I think most recently the way that they've been held accountable is not by not getting reelected, which is, that's been a big thing. But I think that's the only way that we've been able to.
$180,000 retirement punishment.
Right.
I want to get punished like that. Nobody punishes me like that.
Yeah.
Right. No, exactly.
Not really wrong to get punished. So there you go. I don't know. I just expect more. I expect more from our judiciary. I expect them to do the right thing, to follow the law. Like, these are the things that we want. And I think when you don't bring it to light, it makes our community and the public lose faith in it too. Because if I'm losing faith in it as an attorney who's been practicing for 15 plus years, then imagine what the average person on the street or the 14-year-old black kid feels like. You know what I mean? They don't have a chance. It breaks my heart. The whole thing breaks my heart.
It does. And I think, kind of what y'all were saying in my internet was like, girl, you've been on the internet too much today. We're like flowing out. Sorry about that. But I think, it talks, one thing that I publicly harp on a whole lot is like lawyer legislators and judicial process and how we elect judges. And, there's no freaking ever good system for, electing judges publicly, whether we do it in the legislature, whatever. But there has to be some responsibility and accountability to the public. And if we don't have that, what do we have? Like, what is there? To me, there's not anything that we can say, okay, well, we don't believe in Target this week. We don't believe in our judicial system. We don't believe it. Like, it's all just.
Okay, well, where are we going to draw the line? If it's not stealing people's money, what if they rape children? Is that going to be the line breaker? What about stealing people's cars? Like, where are we going to draw the line? If like stealing people's money and letting murderers out of prison, where is the line for us? Like, where are we going to say enough is enough? And then how do we get there? I don't know.
Well, but here's the thing. And I know, because it's the defense attorney in me, and some, I still don't know all. I've heard bits and pieces about, what Jeriod did. And like, one of the things that I have heard is that, the information that he provided got a really bad guy who escaped, got him back in prison. Right. And he did some other
somebody too, didn't he? Like a CO or something, correction officer.
Right. And so, so I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve some credit.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know that that's easy for me to say, and no matter what, and this is the thing that I struggle with, because I do represent a lot of people accused with murders, is that no matter what happens at the end, you could kill them, Dick Harpootlian firing squad style. They're not ever, those people are not coming back. And so, like Cassie Alia she's like, I respect her so much because, she, when her husband was shot, the Forest Acres police officer, and she was like, look, I have to heal. I can't I can take one of two ways with this. You know, I can be the string everybody up, take away guns, but you know, but she didn't do that. And I think that, you know, I'm not saying that Price didn't deserve some credit, but again, it wasn't. I think that the bigger story, like you said, Aimee, is why it happened the way it did. Like,
judges make decisions we don't agree with every day. That's okay. I'm not saying that.
Give us the basis.
And I'm not saying Mr. Price doesn't deserve some kind of leniency because, like, God, don't we all want people to walk away something a better person? Like, do you know what I mean? Nothing would make my heart any happier than for Jeriod Price to be a better person, to not ever want to hurt to save lives and not take them, right? That is like the ultimate goal it should be anyway, of our system.
But you make those decisions on the record in a courtroom in front of the victim's family.
In the public with everybody and their full knowledge of it. But when you have it behind
and that's the thing, Sarah, like I respect what you do. And and I think that even you would agree that sometimes people, especially people who are in so much hurt and so much pain, can be unreasonable. Right. And so just like we say at like a mediation, if everybody walks away a little bit unhappy, then the right thing happened. Yeah. Right. And I mean, so I do struggle with, lock people charged with murder, away forever and ever and ever and ever. Because even that case, there were circumstances surrounding that, and there are just different levels of murder. There just are, even though the state doesn't recognize them, there are. And
in real life,
but I agree with you. I hope that the decedent's family is just hurt because they heard about it afterwards, and not just because,
It's also because I have this conversation every day with adults and children. You know what Brené Brown says? She says,
I love her.
Clear as kind.
Mm-hmm.
I hear people give me news that I don't like. People say things to me I don't like every day, and I can accept it because they come from a place of honesty when they tell me, right? It's like when a judge goes in a way you don't like it, and he gives you an order of why. Okay, I may not like it, but I respect it. And especially with victims, and I do a lot of victims advocate work, a lot, especially with sexual assault victims. And part of the healing process is not forgiveness of what happened, or they've got to have this kind of like forgiveness of for themselves. You know what I mean? Because forgiveness is never about the other person. It's about your heart. Because if you live in this every day, it only hurts you, right? It doesn't hurt them. And so like they've got to come to this realization that what happened was awful and it wasn't right. And we all agree with that. But like there might be a decision by a judge that we don't like. And we can all live with that when it's all out in the open. But we can't live with it when you do it behind closed doors on your last day of your, it just.
It makes it seem, yeah.
It seems that way, maybe, allegedly, for educational purposes, because it was shady.
I mean, to me, what is the point? What is the point of doing these, seeing these things, and we're not fully shining the light on this is what happened. Like, if there's any reason for you to do it in chambers, if there's any reason for you to do it without notifying victims per statute and per constitution, if there's any reason for us to do it, then you shouldn't be doing it. You should not be doing that. And I think that for me, in the work that I do, it makes me furious because there's so little control that victims have over what's happening. You have the right to confer with the prosecutor, but that doesn't mean they can veto what's going to happen. I mean, there's just so little. At least giving them the respect and saying, hey, you're not going to like what's going to happen at this hearing. It's going to be crap. You're going to hear things you don't want to hear. The results is probably not going to be what you want, but at least you're here. You can have your say, and that's the end. At least have that terrible conversation and say, this is going to suck, but we respect you enough to at least tell you that.
Right. I feel like there's this huge disconnect with prosecutors because they're almost angry that there's a victim. Like you just added another to my checklist.
But here's the other thing too, is that, and again, just because I can't help it, I just am going to always come up from the defense side, right? But there was this law put in place, right? That if you provide substantial assistance after you've been convicted, then you should get, downward
departure.
Some benefit of it.
Yeah, you should get evaluation. But now, what nobody realizes is that none of my clients are going to go and talk now, like the ones that are in SCDC, because, it just messes up it messes it up from every side, right?
I think with those clients, you've got to tell them that's not what happened here. Okay. That's not what happened in this situation. Everybody wasn't doing the right thing on the up and up, because this is the deal. I remember listening to this story once, and he said, we don't sneak, because when you're doing the right thing, you don't have to sneak.
You don't have to.
You don't have to sneak. And when you're sneaking around, it's because you're not doing the right thing. Like, it's like when I wanted to go to my boyfriend's house when I was 16, and I snuck around, told my mama I was going to my girlfriend's house. It was because I was doing the wrong, or maybe not the wrong thing, but the wrong thing. You know what I mean? It's like that. You don't have to sneak around and do it behind closed doors and in the shadows when you're doing the right thing. And the thing is like we hold these people like to this higher standard, and we put them on this pedestal, and we give them this fancy robe and this like fancy thing, and their signature means everything, and their word means everything. And then when they let us down and they do this kind of stuff, it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? If that guy's not going to do the right thing, then how can I ever expect anybody else? That's the one person who's supposed to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there were so many, like, again, going back to like the systemic things that we see, like there were so many different layers of this that should have caught what was happening. Like you've got an order that's never filed, like that's never stamped, never clocked. And then it's like,
doesn't have a name on it, doesn't have a caption. It's like, like, why did the clerk not reject this? Like, you know what I mean?
SCDC like gets a copy of this, and it's like, okay, here we go. And it's like, is that all it takes? Like,
right.
Do I just
right. I know, because I got clients.
Never goes anything I've ever done. How about you, Aimee? Does that ever go that simple?
Oh, gosh,
it's like, oh yeah, sure, rubber stamp it.
Never.
Nothing happens in my case.
It's bizarre and alarming, and it frustrates the damn fool out of me, because I feel like we try, no one is perfect. People make mistakes, but sometimes owning up and saying, yo, screwed up, messed this up. Let's try to do so. Like, let's try to fix this. Like, this is what went wrong. Full disclosure. Here we are.
I've done and said things that I should not have done and said, right? I remember I said something about a judge, and I shouldn't have said it. It was the truth, but it was not the right thing to do. And that judge called me out in his chambers. And you know what? I looked at him, I looked him dead in the eye, and I said, he thought I was going to deny it. And I said it, and I'm sorry. And I shouldn't have said that. And I would hope, and I pray, I know I don't deserve to be forgiven, but I hope you give me some grace. I'm really sorry. I take full responsibility. That should have never come out of my mouth. To this day, that man hugs me when I see him, because I just looked at him and said, I'm really, really sorry. I had a lapse of judgment, and I should have never said that. And we still love each other. We're 10 years in, and he respects me more than probably anybody, because he is, I fully expect you to lie to me. I go, no, I'm not going to dig myself deeper in a hole. My mom and daddy didn't teach me anything. We take accountability, look people in the eye, we make a mistake, own it, ask for forgiveness, and do better next time. And that
pleasant.
Do it right. Do better.
Right. Don't do it again. It's not pleasant having to take responsibility for the crappy things that we've done. Like, it sucks. But that
thing rarely is easy.
No,
rarely.
It's exactly. It's not. Zeke, you've said nothing since like it's become like a full estrogen.
I didn't know Zeke was like a talk. Like, I was like, is Zeke sick, or what's the deal? But
well, I'm on here like waiting for, like, I was gonna pose questions, but y'all are just like killing it, and y'all are preaching and keep preaching.
Well, coming from an actual preacher, I think we're gonna be like, amen.
See,
on that.
I want you to know that I love Jesus more than anybody. But I also curse a whole bunch, and I can't help it. And I went to my preacher many, many years ago because I really felt so torn in life because I cursed and I couldn't stop, and I prayed about it all the time. And my preacher said, Aimee, you're a wonderful human being. You're a good mom. You have a good heart. You do love Jesus. I think it's a coping mechanism. And I really don't think Jesus gives two shits if you say a curse word.
Hey, well, I'm a preacher and I cuss sometimes too. So
It's real life.
It's
We're just
all
real life over here.
It's real life.
Exactly.
We're in the
So,
trenches, seeing real things.
That's right. Well, I said a whole lot at the beginning before the two Aimees got on, but like
I took over.
y'all are the experts on it all. And so it's been fun to sit here and listen to the banter back and forth and to listen to y'all speak truth to power. And I hope that power hears, maybe not listen, but hears what you have to say. As someone who seeks justice in my line of work, different kind of justice, but justice all the same. I hope that that speaking truth to power gets through to the power.
Us too.
I think that's the thing.
That's what
we just keep saying it, right? We just
Yeah.
keep talking. Sorry, Aimee, I didn't mean
That's
to
right.
interrupt. Damn it.
But I guess it's, I was in trial last week and it was, I didn't know what was going to happen, but it was the best, honestly. Everybody knew but me, but and I'm glad it worked out, but it was just the best trial experience. And I'll tell you why. It's because the judge was so he was so kind. And I remember when we were back in chambers and he said to me, it's better to be dumb and nice than smart and mean. And I was like, I don't think you're dumb at all. But the way that this judge approached just the trial process and somebody record this because I'm going to say it, working with that prosecutor was, an incredibly pleasant experience. And when that jury came back with 2 not guilties in exactly 1 hour, he came over and he shook my hand and he said, I learned a lot. That was his first trial. Bless his heart. On his own, but not just being gracious in a loss, which I've seen solicitors in Horry County, Mariel Waters, not be kind, right? In fact, they won't come back in the courtroom.
Like looks down and stomp out.
Right. Not come back in a courtroom? What?
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh yeah. But even before, like, and it wasn't a good experience just because I was on the right side of the outcome, but even leading up to the trial, even like because I was out of town. And so I was doing a lot of stuff by phone, and he was just, the solicitor was so nice, like by phone. And, we discussed issues, and we were able to, we had a really long, Monday was all pretrial stuff. And I started to get a little bit emotional and passionate because, I felt like this side was missing, just the things that I wanted. And then, and the judge just let me go. And then I was like, Judge, I said, and by the time I was done with my presentation, like I was from behind the table, I was in front of the table, I was almost up at the bench because I was trying, I just can't sit still basically. And my Adderall was running low, but and then I looked up and I realized how close I was to the judge. I said, Your Honor, I'm so sorry. I was like, I feel like we're both advocating passionately. And I just, and he was like, no, don't ever apologize. He's like, you two are communicating. You can still be on opposite sides and still be adverse and, and still be pleasant to each other. And it was, honestly, win or lose, it was the best trial experience I've had, and I've had a lot of them. And that's the kind of advocacy that I really want people to see, you know? Yeah.
You know, by and large, I have that relationship with most of my prosecutors, with the exception of like one or two here. But that's the way it's supposed to be. Like, if we all follow I tell my clients all the time that this is a dance. And I have a step I have to do. And I've never taken ballroom dancing, but I'm doing this in my cha-cha, and they've got to do this in their cha-cha. And it's like they have to do their part. And then we come together, but it doesn't have to be this, I hate your gut. I hate your guts moment. It's like you're on one side.
And they turn it personal.
It's not personal.
Yeah.
It's an adversarial process, but we don't have to be personal adversaries to be able to be good advocates.
We don't mind conflict. Like, I don't look for conflict, but I don't mind it. I address it head on. I'm very clear and kind with people. I'm very respectful. I lay it on the line. I tell the truth.
They also know where you're coming from. Right.
They know exactly where I stand all the time. I'm to a fault. I have no really secrets. My client secrets I keep, of course, but you know, everybody knows where I stand on things. I don't pull any punches, but I do it in a very gracious, kind way, and that's respectful, and everybody appreciates that. And that's the way this is supposed to be. And somewhere along the way, you know, prosecutors we were arguing because they wanted to add, was it Rule 3.8? They wanted to add the part where prosecutors, if after conviction learned of evidence of innocence, that they would have a duty to turn it over
and reopen the case. Yeah,
they just had to turn it over and put it before a judge to make a decision, right?
Right.
And the Solicitors Association fought it tooth and nail. Why would we fight that? So they asked me to go speak at the House of Delegates for the bar who would adopt this ethics rule, and I sat there and I listened. And I've never been so disappointed with a group of people, because you realize that they're supposed to be the administrators of justice. What does the rule say, Aimee? What are they? The ministers of justice?
Your job. I used to say this to my dad all the time when I was a prosecutor. I'd be like, well, your job, my job is to do justice. As a prosecutor, that is it. Sometimes that's dismissing a case, prosecuting to the fullest extent. That is the prosecutor's job, period.
And when I think of that, I think of it like in my head, I think of it like as one of the most noble professions you can have, right?
Yeah.
And that because sometimes justice looks really different for different cases.
It does.
And I just have this like vision of like all gold sword, like in my head, like Lady Justice, like that's what I want. That's what I want out of my prosecutors. But somehow along the way, they lost sight of that. And all they want is the win. They're just trying to put a W on the board. And that's not what justice looks like. And so when I was speaking to the House of Delegates, I said, and this is like, it's all different types of attorneys from all across the state. And I said, if you raise your hand, if you're okay with leaving a man behind bars that's innocent, a man or woman behind bars, raise your hand if you're okay with that. Raise your hand. I'm waiting. Prosecutors Association, come on, give me your best go at it. Are you okay with that? They said no. And I said, then why are we so scared of adopting this rule? Aren't we supposed to fight just as hard if somebody's innocent as we are if they're guilty? Do you know what I mean? And a prosecutor's supposed to want that too. But that's where the disconnect has happened. Just like the disconnect has happened in the prison system. The disconnect has happened in the DSS system. You know, when Joe Cunningham was running for governor, I supported him. And he said, Aimee, he said, you have such a good heart. Like, is there anything that you want to do? Like, I feel like you need to hold some kind of position. What would you like to do? What can I help you to give you a way to like read? You know, I hear you talking and I'm listening. And I said, I want to be head of the prison system. I want to like help in the prison system, or I want to be head of DSS. Can I do that? Like, what can I do? Like, I have a servant's heart. And I think, and he said, son of a gun, like nobody wants that. Nobody wants to do that. Why would you want to do that? And I said,
I vote for her to be a head of DSS, by the way.
Those are the people
you'd be really great at that, Aimee.
Don't we want to rehabilitate people? Don't we? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to treat people with out dignity, no matter what they have done. If we are a sum of our worst day, then we would all fall short. We would all fall short.
That reminds me, we were talking about Ted Lasso before we started, and there was a quote. I mean, I cried my eyes out yesterday, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but I think there was a quote in the next to last episode where it was, let us all hope that we are not judged by our worst decisions that we make on the worst day, but that we are judged by what we do if we are given a second chance. Like, do we not, is there not some element, whether we are victims or defendants or prosecutors or defense attorneys or, milkmen or mail ladies or whatever, do we not want there to be some positivity, some good in the world, some highlighting of there are good people still in this world? It's not about the wins and the losses and the judging and the pointing of fingers, but saying, let us take some initiative to say, let's make this world a better place. Like, let's just do better.
Sarah and I were talking yesterday. We were planning for future podcast episodes, and my wife and I were in seminary in Georgia and Atlanta when they put the state killed Kelly Gissendaner, the first woman to be put to death in the state of Georgia. And our seminary worked in the prison that she was in, and she went through actually the theological education certificate program that a lot of our seminary professors taught in. And talk about someone who made, she said, the worst decision that she had ever made by taking part in having her husband killed, but went through this rehabilitation in the 20 years she was in prison, built back the relationships with her children, got this education while she was there. I mean, the prison warden would put people in the cell beside her who were suicidal.
Yeah.
So that she could help them. And going back to this whole conversation, like, the state of Georgia could not admit that maybe they made a mistake, but that this person was so vile that she could not be rehabilitated. What's our system for if someone can't be a changed person at the end of their experience in the Department of Corrections? What's it? I mean, it blows my mind. And, going back to the whole Jeriod Price conversation, like, it just blows my mind that these systemic issues can't be addressed. And the state of Georgia put somebody killed somebody because they couldn't admit that, maybe a different decision needed to be made about this human being's life.
And that's the thing that blows my mind. And I think that that's one of the frustrations that we see probably on all of the sides that we work on in this, is that, I mean, we're all human, every single flipping one of us. Right. And, but just like you said, if there's not a hope to, rehabilitate or make change, then why do we even have this system? Then just, I saw this, I don't know where I saw the debate going on, but, it had to have been in one of my groups, I don't know, but one of the female members of the Manson family was finally granted parole after 50 years, I think.
I think since 71. Like I think she's been incarcerated since
so 52 years. And she was, 18, 19, 20 when she goes in, and they talk about, and she'd been denied parole numerous times, but was finally, granted it, and it was the appeal was upheld, and people are just all up in arms. But then, I would just wish people would stop and listen for a second and look at the things that this 18, 19, 20-year-old was going through at that time, and the things that she participated in were horrific. And who has to live with that every single day? She does. But instead of taking her own life or causing riots or causing problems in the prisons, she was just like you said. She was like, especially for the young ladies that were only in there for a short period of time, she was able to touch them, not in an inappropriate way. Sorry, it's just the nature of my job.
Yeah.
We know we're lawyers, so we caveats, right?
It's so bad that I qualify that. But I mean, to hear all of the amazing things that she has done and continues to do. And what moved me the most was, and obviously it came from her lawyer, but the gist of what she said is, if they appeal it and it gets overturned, that's not going to change who I am. And I mean, like you said, Zeke, that I hope should be the epitome of our situation. But, for a multitude of reasons. And I think
why they don't, why people want to stand behind their keyboards and make their comments. Everybody wants justice till it's their kid that gets in trouble. Till it's their mama, till it's their sister, till it's their brother, whatever. And then they're all begging for mercy, right? They can't. And what I've learned is people can't see past their own experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm going to because I'm a white woman of privilege. I'm going to choose not to believe that there's racism in America because when people from a different point of view or a different experience tell us, we don't believe them. We don't believe them. And so the best thing we could ever do is when people, it's like, if someone's telling me a story about how they were marginalized and hurt because of the color of their skin, instead of saying, well, that's never happened to me, or I've never seen that. Like instead,
or I don't do that.
Right. And totally dismissing
believe them that this happened, and then ask ourselves, what can we do to make this a better situation when I encounter it? It's kind of like when I go into Target and only the black makeup has sensors on it, I show my ass. You know what I mean? Because I'm coming from a place of privilege. You know what I mean? I'm a white woman. I can say anything and do anything I want in this world, pretty much. I mean, unless it's up against a white dude, I guess. But like, you know what I mean? Like I do. It's always people are like, white women will do all kinds of crazy shit and say all kinds of crazy shit. I mean, I could pull a Karen. You know what I mean? And no one.
I've seen Twitter. Come on, it's crazy.
Right? Like, you know what I mean? So like when I see those things, when you see something, you have to stand up and do something. So when people tell you about people can be better, Zeke, I 100% believe what you just told me because you saw that up close and personal. You saw her heart and how she changed and how she didn't want to leave this it breaks my heart. She didn't want to leave this world as a murderer. She wanted to leave this world as someone who
made a difference
and forged a relationship with Jesus for so many people. What a gift. You know what I mean? And the idea that she left this world and didn't get to like carry on that mission, that just breaks my heart because that's not what the system's supposed to be about.
Justice looks different. The name of the podcast is Stepping Toward Justice. And I kind of came up with the name thinking about the staircase, with Dr. Martin Luther King. Like you don't have to see the whole staircase to take a step towards justice. And what justice looks like, and all of us do different things in the justice arena. Zeke, you, Aimee, like, we're not all going to see things the same way, through the same lens, through the same experience, but we can all respect each other's opinion and what justice can mean for us and for our clients and for society. And by having conversations and talking about these things, that's where change can happen. That's where we can grow. That's where we can learn. 25-year-old Sarah had nothing on 41-year-old Sarah. Like, there's so much to learn in that time, and the experiences I had as a public defender or as a public school teacher before I became a lawyer, like, those are experiences that make me a better person. And so if we just get on our silos and say, this is where I live and I'm not moving and I'm not looking out and I don't give a crap, what kind of life is that? And I know that we've, it makes me feel good to have these conversations with other lawyers and preachers, because if we don't talk about these things, if we pretend that everything's fine, don't look at the man behind the curtain, there's nothing to see here, that's where the darkness thrives. And we're not helping anybody, whether it's justice for defendants or for victims or for people who are, substance abuse disorders and whatever they've got going on, whoever the people are, it's not going to help it if we pretend like nothing's wrong, nothing's happening. And so I appreciate you just coming on and chatting and talking, because we got to have these conversations.
Our world tells us that it's most important to be right. And when in reality, if we live in a world where we all seek to do justice, to just be decent human beings, conversations like these can happen. But until we put down our desire to be right,
it's ego, right? It's ego.
Yeah.
It can't be. The problem is in the United States, it's all become about me. We've become a me society. It's like when everybody's fighting, the lockdown. The lockdown wasn't government control. It was, we want to save our neighbor. I don't want Miss Ruby beside of me to die, right? I don't want to spread a virus. So, and instead of us all like collectively, I think that was really like what the line kind of was for me, is like, I was I didn't even want to go around my parents because I was terrified that I would, but it wasn't just my parents. It wasn't just the people I loved. It was Miss Ruby across the street. It was the lady at the grocery store. It was this kind of thing. I wanted to protect everybody along the way. And somehow we missed that. It was all about me, my rights, my feelings, my whatever. And we lost sight of our collectiveness, because I really feel like our communities are where we're so powerful. And like, that's, you know what I mean? Whether it's our church community, our, the town that we live in, our judicial community, whatever that is for you, like, we lost sight that that's like so important. But that's where the magic is. And until we get back to the collective, we're going to just see just gridlock, right? It's going to be gridlock, because somewhere along the way, we've all lost sight of like what's important, not just for me, but for everybody. And that's all I ever want.
I talk a lot about centering victims' voices and elevating victims' voices, because that's what I try to do in the work that I do. And I think, so often we overestimate our, who we are and how much other people think of us. And we center ourselves in situations that we have no business being centered in. And it's always important to hear those, like what you were talking about, like thinking about your neighbor, like, is it convenient for me not to be able to do what I think I want to do? No, it might not be, but I give a crap about Miss Ruby across the street. So I'm going to protect her, or whatever the situation.
She's a national treasure, and she has to be protected at all costs.
Protect Miss Ruby from across the street. It's just what we need to do. It's what we need to do. So, well, y'all rock. Thank you so much for joining us.
I love you, Sarah Ford. I love you, Zeke. And Aimee knows I love her.
Much love to everybody. Thanks for joining us.
I'm glad to be on the same screen with y'all.
It's fun. We'll do it again soon. Y'all.
Excellent. Thanks.
Thank you for
having us.
Bye, y'all.